Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. You might have heard about a bit of a commotion going on in Austin, Texas, which is a bit of an anarchist hub, actually. There's many past Anarchast guests that are based out of Austin, Texas. And recently they ran out of town, the sort of semi-free, semi-decentralized company, Uber. And I've actually been in Austin, Texas. I was there for a Bitcoin conference a couple of years ago, and I waited about 3 hours for a taxi. Uber didn't even have cars available, and that was when Uber was actually there. Now Uber isn't there, and I've heard the taxi system is just as bad as it always has been in Austin, Texas. But a new company that it was just started in December of last year, Arcade City, has come into Austin, Texas, and has taken over in the area and has started to begin offering ride services in the area, even though it is sort of semi-illegal or illegal by government decree, but they are fairly decentralized. This is a very, very interesting company, very interesting concept, because Uber, in some senses, is quite decentralized, but what Arcade City is saying is they're not decentralized enough, and they seem to be doing very well. They've caught press across the U.S. and even around the world on the interwebs. So I have the founder of Arcade City, Christopher David, coming in from Austin, Texas. So glad to have you on, Christopher. I know you're incredibly busy with everything going on. I know you moved to Austin, Texas, because that's sort of your ground zero for launching or getting your brand going. But before we get into things, why don't you let people know how you became a voluntarist?
Sure. Thanks, Jeff. Let's see. I was an anti-war protester going back to 2003. Kind of considered myself sort of a leftist because those were the only people I saw protesting the Bush administration, which I thought was evil. So I followed foreign policy. That was kind of my number one issue. Kind of sort of was a reluctant Democrat, couldn't bring myself to vote for John Kerry in 2004. In 2007, tuned into the Republican debate just to see what these neocons were saying and heard a guy talking about blowback and the fact that, 9/11 was not, what we thought it was. And so that got me turned on and looking into him because I knew that took courage to say that in front of this very hostile, South Carolina Republican audience. That got me looking into libertarianism. So I'd say within about 2 months after that, I was kind of a card-carrying libertarian quoting Murray Rothbard. So that got me involved with the Ron Paul movement, and that's how I came to voluntarism.
That's great. And I know I think you were based in New Hampshire before, which of course is a very large area for libertarians, anarchists, voluntarists. And I know you've recently just moved to Austin, Texas because of what's going on there. I know that created quite a stir when the city council people who own Austin, Texas apparently decided that Uber can't be there anymore, and you've moved in. So why don't you just start from the beginning, because Arcade City is very new, but it's already become very big. Why don't you tell us how this all happened?
Sure. So it began when I was living in Portsmouth, New Hampshire last year, and the city council there kind of made a bunch of news because they were considering this new transportation ordinance that Uber said that if this ordinance went through as written, Uber would need to pull out of Portsmouth. And as someone who was new to Portsmouth, I had just sold my car. I lived walking distance from downtown. I was just alarmed that this city that I had the impression was this kind of tech-friendly, culturally progressive kind of place would consider pushing Uber out. That actually motivated me to drive for Uber so I could be on the front lines of the sharing economy and really get familiar with this issue and make a few extra bucks. And it was great until Portsmouth actually went through with that ordinance. Uber decided in the end not to leave, just to kind of ignore the ordinance, which demanded all of these additional checks that kind of duplicated Uber's process, that it wouldn't really work with their system. So Uber said to drivers, look, continue driving. We're going to continue kind of working things out, but in the meantime, we will pay any fines that you get. So I very vocally continued driving. I, put on Facebook and we organized little rallies of Uber drivers, and we put flyers up about, why it was terrible that the city council is pushing Uber out or cracking down on drivers themselves when the Uber kind of wouldn't give in to their demands. And so I continued kind of vocally driving and started this activist campaign called Free Uber, partly in response to news reports about taxi drivers announcing that they were going to be patrolling the streets for rogue Uber drivers, compiling lists of license plates and handing them to the cops. Like, this needed some kind of organized pushback. So I started a campaign called Free Uber. We put flyers up, and generally I just kept driving, and I was kind of hoping that I would be the first person to be prosecuted under this new ordinance and be caught driving for Uber, taking people home safely after they had a couple drinks at night. But what actually ended up happening was there was even better than me getting the first ticket. Was the first ticket written was to a 62-year-old grandmother, part-time bus driver, and just out of pure luck, the night that she got ticketed, I happened to be driving downtown. I had a guy making a documentary, like a little mini documentary about the Uber and Portsmouth saga in my passenger seat. So we ended up driving by this grandmother as she's being pulled over. She has not one but two cop cars behind her, including a canine unit. So we're driving by slowly. Initially, we didn't know exactly what we were seeing. We eventually realized later on that this was Uber grandma. But we could pass by one cop car with the canine unit, the second cop car, and then we passed by her, and this lady, this 62-year-old lady, looks out the window and she smiles at the camera. We're like, oh my God, this is our new mascot kind of thing. So newspaper article came out the next day about grandmother first fined under new ordinance. We printed that out, put it on flyers. We put some of our other drivers, we blanketed the downtown with 200 of these flyers. Kept doing flyers just every day for a few days, and after that, no other Uber drivers were ticketed under this new ordinance for a couple months, and then they got this new police chief in. Anyway, but we had this tussle and this run-in with kind of the city authorities about this whole conversation. We got the whole city talking really about the nature of government and bureaucracy as interfering with what should be peer-to-peer transactions. It should be no one's business other than mine who gets into my car under what conditions, and if someone wants to call an Uber to get home, they should be able to do that, and there shouldn't be anyone saying you haven't done enough red tape or whatever. A lot of these city councils are just use this presence of Uber as a way to extract money from them. It's just theft and graft. It's terrible. So we wanted to fight back against this. We kind of interacted with the city council a bit, but by the end of December, kind of Uber's push to get some changes in the law were all shot down by the city council. The main taxi companies were threatening to pull the cabs out of Portsmouth to the neighboring city on the very, very, very busy New Year's Eve. They did this once prior on Thanksgiving Eve, and basically just stranding a bunch of customers. Uber's surge prices were through the roof. And so we said, you know what? There's a lot of Uber drivers that were scared to drive under this new ordinance. We said, well, we read the ordinance and it said that you could give rides for free. As long as you're not taking compensation or charging for rides, then it doesn't fall under the ordinance. So we said, you know what? Let's get 10 Uber drivers together. Let's take ride requests. Let's give free rides on New Year's Eve to riders who want them. So we ended up giving 100 rides on New Year's Eve. It went amazing. It went perfectly smooth. We took ride requests for 3 days in advance. We did a bunch of pre-scheduled rides. At 2 a.m. when we finished our pre-scheduled rides, we fanned out across the city, and there were people walking home 2 miles because they were just completely stranded. Uber was at 9.9x surge. There were no cabs available. It was just this chaotic, terrible situation. And what we realized was this kind of more peer-to-peer model that was a little edgier, that maybe wasn't, or was kind of on the edges of the law in some kind of gray area, actually could provide an absolutely needed service when corporations and governments kind of don't solve people's needs. So we decided to turn that into an app and launch an app in February. We put up a driver sign-up process, sign-up form first week of January, and that coincided with Uber and Lyft cutting rates across the board up to 40% for all drivers in the US, which is great for consumers in the short term, but if you're a driver, you're working 40, 50 hours a week expecting to pull home $1,200 a week, and now you're pulling home $800 a week, you're pissed off. So a lot of drivers protested, and this has happened every year for the past couple of years. And so it came at the perfect timing for us because our whole argument was like, hey, drivers, you should be able to set your own rates, charge whatever you think is fair, build up a recurring customer base, kind of these ideas that emerged out of our experiment there in Portsmouth. And we just got thousands and thousands and thousands of drivers signing up from all over the country. It crashed our servers. We're like, wow, we really have something here. There's a lot of people actively searching for an alternative to Uber and Lyft that doesn't treat their drivers like crap. So we kind of went from battling the city to now wanting to take on Uber also. But the response has been amazing so far. This very similar situation with the city council has just started playing out in Austin, but we have now this like much larger network that is just mobilized in a massive way. We've connected 27,000 riders and drivers in the past week. It's just been absolutely amazing to see.
Yeah, it is amazing. At Anarchapulco this year, for people who don't know, Anarchapulco, the world's largest anarcho-capitalist conference held every year here in Acapulco. The next one's going to be end of February 2017. You had some people there, and we actually had an entrepreneurship boot camp, one-day camp, and we actually had what we call the Shark Tank, and people came up and pitched their ideas. And one of the ideas was Arcade City, and I was sitting there going, wow, this is very interesting. And then to see you guys have done so well since then, that's just a few months ago, is just so amazing to me to see, so great to see. Why don't you tell us a little bit, before we get into Austin, I want to get into Austin quite a bit too, but before we get into that, why don't you tell us what is the difference between Arcade City and Uber? How are you more decentralized? What are the exact differences? What makes you different than in how you do things?
So the big thing so far is that we are decentralizing the pricing decision from corporate San Francisco headquarters down to the level of the rider and driver. That addresses the number one pain point that I've heard from countless Uber drivers is you're working, you're expecting to make a certain amount of money, Uber cuts rates and now you're making less. Arbitrary, overnight, you have no control over how much you're making. So even though there's a lot of benefits to driving for Uber, you have more flexibility than you do in a 9-to-5 job, you still are victim to the dictates of corporate headquarters in San Francisco. And a lot of drivers, they really want this to be a business. They're entrepreneurial by nature. They want to get out. They would like to build up a recurring customer base of people who are regulars. There's a lot of riders who've ridden with me and other people where like they request you again. Uber doesn't offer any support for that. They want everything to be algorithmic, impersonal, and part of that is their whole model is to continually drive down rates. They want to have Uber and Lyft basically replace personal car ownership, where you're taking Uber and Lyft around, and they eventually want to replace all drivers with self-driving cars years down the road or sooner, as soon as it's feasible for them. But our whole argument is that results in the most experienced drivers leaving the platform because drivers want to make more money over time, not less. So Uber and Lyft spend millions and millions of dollars, tens of millions of dollars per month on signing up new drivers to do the same work for less money. That results in less quality. Ask anyone who's taken Uber consistently for the past year and they'll tell you that the quality has gone down. Absolutely they have. What we've seen with Arcade City is by empowering the drivers and saying, look, you can set your own fares. Whatever you think is fair, whatever you think works in your market, and if you want to combine that with services like delivery, we have people offering delivery services, roadside assistance, custom courier things. People will like come and get your car if you're drunk. There's all sorts of services that people are coming up with that we're just saying, look, you are an entrepreneur. We, as a company, we're just going to provide you some tools that will make your life easier, but fundamentally, we want you to be an entrepreneur. That results in riders, number one, having more choice. It's been fantastic to watch here in Austin, where there's this, large group of people, like females, who go out at night and they would like the comfort of knowing that they can call a female driver if they want to. You can't do that with Uber. You can do it with Arcade City. There's a lot of benefits that just come from saying, you know what, we don't have all the answers. We're not going to do everything centrally and algorithmically and tell you how to do it. We're just going to provide you the basic kind of platform. So there's that kind of decentralized organizational model has been working for us so far, and we know that as we go down 3 to 6 months from now, the best way to support that is to integrate blockchain technology, get people paying in Bitcoin, get people paying in this arcade token we're going to issue later this year, which is going to have people be able to pay 0 in transaction fees. blockchain stuff is like super, super, super exciting, and it's one benefit to that is that it's going to let us build. There's all these new technologies coming out now called IPFS, basically where you can distribute even applications in a peer-to-peer manner, where even if the Apple Store or Android Store says, you know what, this is too on the gray area of the law, like there are ways to build just completely resilient networks that hook into the Ethereum blockchain where you can build an unstoppable peer-to-peer logistics network that no one can crack down on. So that's the long-term goal.
Wow, that's amazing. It's so interesting to see all this coming together. Blockchain, you mentioned Ethereum, that didn't even really exist for the most part until a few months ago. These things are really speeding up, and you're right on the cusp of it. Let me ask you, as a business person, as someone who might even want to invest in something like this, what is the revenue model for Arcade City? Because you say that the drivers can sort of make up their own rates and stuff. Is Arcade City still getting a cut of whatever they decide on? Is that how it works?
Optionally. So drivers and riders will always have the option to transact peer-to-peer if they want to just use the Arcade City app or the Arcade City network as kind of a communication and lead gen engine for them to find riders and connect peer-to-peer. That's completely fine. We're never going to like require that people not do that. But we are going to incentivize people to pay through the app. So most Uber customers, Lyft customers are accustomed to connecting their credit card to an account and being able to pay through the app and not have to worry about cash or anything like that. So for payments that are made through the app, credit cards, eventually soon Bitcoin, through the app, we will take a 10% cut of those transactions. Compare that to 20 or 25% with Uber and Lyft. For Bitcoin, we'll do 2% or something super, super minimal, but so in a way that we're still pulling in money. And we're not going to force people into that model, but we are going to stack enough incentives, have this kind of gamification layer where in order to level up your driver or rider profile from level 1 to level 2, level 3, level 4, and unlock various prizes like you're eligible for referral commissions and other kind of cool things we're going to attach per level. You have to level up by doing payments through the app, kind of why we call it Arcade City. We want to gamification is absolutely critical to making this kind of decentralized reputation system work. But percentage of ride revenue as an initial revenue model. There's other models down the road. I mean, if you look at Uber, their whole idea is to not just do ride sharing. I mean, they've raised $9 in capital, not just because of their revenue projections on ride sharing, but it's because they've shown a path and a vision for using ride sharing as a way to basically encircle the world in this global transportation and logistics network that can be monetized in all these different ways. So you see in city by city, they roll out these other services like Uber Eats and delivery things, and there's potential for like medical concierge stuff. So there's a lot of other revenue streams that you can kind of put on top of this. And so where we connect drivers, where we build some infrastructure on our end that has drivers be able to access some of these other revenue streams for them, we'll take a little cut of that. So we'll do fine as a company.
A lot of people are going to be asking, including myself, are you looking for investment or accepting investment into the company at this time?
Yeah, we've been raising a seed round. We are almost done with it. We have a bit of room. We have a number of people that are kind of making offers to lead the round. We are still looking for kind of the right round leader, and then we've got a few chunks of smaller chunks that we'll take from a few other angel investors. So yeah, we're doing an equity seed round, giving away 20% of the company at this stage, and then you have to check our YouTube channel because we've got a very not unique, but unconventional way of structuring. We have the corporation, and then we're going to be launching a decentralized autonomous organization later this year, doing a crowd sale, and we've kind of been puzzling out and talking with a lot of these smart kind of Ethereum and blockchain-minded lawyers and people about how to structure these two different entities. And so there's some interesting things to kind of wrap your head around in the realm of crypto finance. I mean, you look at this DAO that just raised $150 million in the past month. I mean, there's all these new models coming out that we want to have kind of our foot in both worlds, where we're able to draw on the kind of standard institutional investor and some of the things that we can learn from people who've invested in the ride-sharing space in the past, while also drawing on more of these kind of decentralized, broad-based ways of crowdfunding, like through Ethereum.
Amazing. I saw a picture of you recently on Facebook, I believe, and you were holding up a book, and I've got the book here, Swarmwise by Rick Falkvinge. He was a past Anarchast guest from Sweden, the person who founded the Pirate Party. Has this book been a part of how you've has this book helped you in building this company?
Yes, I say that it is basically our playbook. It is our operating manual. And the big, beautiful thing about it is that it kind of puts forward this kind of a science in some ways of building a broad-based decentralized organization. And I think it's going to be the intersection of blockchain as kind of the technology, the protocol layer, and this Swarmwise as kind of the social dynamics that are going to be running on the blockchain. So I think there's a lot kind of in the blockchain community. There's a lot of emphasis just on the tech side, and I think the social side is equally, if not more important. And this book has been the best explanation for how to structure an organization where you can have just a core scaffolding of kind of a core team of people that are putting in some basic pieces, but the idea is to be able to attract volunteers or low-paid people from all over the country, all over the world, and that's what we've seen. We have people that are so kind of enrolled in the vision of building this as a movement, having a company that is truly by and for the drivers and the riders and stakeholders, whoever wants to kind of contribute to it. It has really powered our growth. So we ordered 10 of them and gave away a bunch at our first driver meetup that we had a couple days ago. We're going to continue kind of giving them away. It's free online, Swarmwise, free PDF, Google that. Just awesome learning experience.
That's great. Yeah, actually, Rick, who wrote the book, spoke at Anarchapulco this year. Amazing guy. He started the Pirate Party, and he used this sort of technique. And actually, you said it's a manual for you. That's what it says, the tactical manual to changing the world. Another anarchist out there changing things. And he started the Pirate Party, which has just exploded. I think the Pirate Party is now the top political party in Iceland right now, mostly with anarchists. This is amazing. Like, this is all happening now. We're all out there doing these things. This is so great to see. You're taking on Uber with a total voluntarist mindset, anarcho-capitalist mindset, and decentralized, using things like Ethereum and Bitcoin. All started, I think, pretty much by anarcho-capitalists. This is pretty awesome. I'm getting pretty happy about how things are going. Let me ask you about Austin, Texas. That's been really what's sort of blown up for Arcade City, from what I can tell. You seem to be right in the middle of this massive media. Everyone's talking about it in Austin. Tell us what's going on there.
So 2 weeks ago, Uber and Lyft pulled out of Austin entirely. There was this city council passed this ordinance that they needed all drivers to be fingerprinted, or most drivers to be fingerprinted, and Uber and Lyft fought this. They sponsored a ballot initiative. They spent $9 million, like the most expensive political campaign in Austin's history, trying to overturn this fingerprinting law. It was rejected like 56 to 44% by Austin voters. And from talking to people, they were mostly pissed off about just how heavy-handed Uber and Lyft were, text messaging people 4 times a day and leaving all these voicemails, than the actual ride sharing and fingerprinting itself. But basically, Uber and Lyft pulled out. And so there's been this huge scramble among other ride-sharing companies to come to town. And the people who've come to town so far or expressed, said that they're coming, they're all not really different at all from Uber and Lyft. They might have, one thing here or there that's a little different, but, we've kind of jumped into the breach as, this entirely different model. This decentralized model, and it was kind of bad timing for us in a way, because our proof of concept app that we launched, we threw together in 6 weeks. We put that up. It was live for 2 months. It just grew way too fast. We pulled it down to rebuild it on a stronger platform, which we're launching in 2 weeks. And so this situation happened. We didn't have an app out. We're like, crap. Well, what we did actually successfully back end of January, when Uber and Lyft pulled out of Midland, Texas, we had some drivers in Midland who just created a Facebook group, Arcade City Midland /request a ride, printed up business cards, went into bars, added people to this group, 500 people, 1,000 people in the first few hours, Like that got on the local news like 5 times, and so like the entire city of Midland, like that was our, until recently, our largest city, just because people were like doing this complete peer-to-peer stuff just on Facebook. Then we released our app and people started using that more, and so there's just kind of this way to kind of kickstart this network there. So we said, all right, let's just do the same thing in Austin, and when we release our app in 2 weeks, that'll be even more awesome. But in the past week and a half, 2 weeks, 27,000 people have joined this group to just watch this, especially on a Friday or Saturday night, as request after request are pouring in, 10 every 3 minutes, and drivers are just jumping on them, connecting, and forming these pods. It's just been remarkable to see this self-organization that's formed. One of our swarm leaders in California took a concept from Swarmwise of group sizes of 7, drew out this diagram of a driver pod of, hey, here's, you can build a team that can kind of trade ride requests, you can kind of, blanket the city and cover more areas, and she dropped that into the Facebook group. Drivers took that and ran with it. At our driver meetup yesterday, we had the leaders from 4 pods telling about all their experiences in the past week, like trading ride requests back and forth, and all the teamwork that's emerging spontaneously. It's like, oh my God, this is the best dynamic that we need to be here as a company and say, okay, how can we build an app? How can we build a service that supports this kind of just amazing bottom-up decentralized movement? So it's this really exciting competition between all these different ride-share companies. I call the rest of them ride-sharing 1.0. I call us ride-sharing 2.0. And you're going to see over the next few weeks, next few months, our model really go and be tested against these other models. And I think we're going to win.
Amazing stuff. It's incredible. I'm really excited about this. Really happy to talk to you. You sound just like you're really on it. You know what you're doing. You're passionate. You're excited. This kind of reminds me of when I was starting one of my internet companies in the 90s. Exciting times for you. I wish you all the best. I also want to invite you to open invitation to be a speaker at Anarchast coming up the last week of February in 2017. Great deal. All right. Awesome. Because you're exactly the kind of person, you can meet people like Rick, who wrote the book here. All these kind of people are at this conference, amazing conference. So glad to hear you're coming. We'll put you down as a speaker. Why don't you let people know if there's anything about Arcade City you want them to know, if there's anything you need, if you want more drivers, or anything you want to let people know.
Yeah, I would say check out our Facebook page, Arcade City. We post a lot of cool updates on there. You can kind of get an inside look of how things are going in Austin. Follow us on Twitter at Arcade City Hall. We've got a lot of content on our YouTube channel. You can go, if you're interested in supporting us on a business side, check out, there's a video called Arcade City, the 5-minute pitch on our YouTube channel. We just kind of gave that same pitch in Berlin last week and won first prize in this blockchain competition. We won 20,000 euros. That was nice. So we'll have video of that too. But yeah, just stay tuned with us. If you want to contribute and kind of join the swarm, we have a Slack channel. Shoot us an email at support@arcade.city if you want to join us in any capacity, and stay tuned.
We will, for sure. Amazing story. I didn't even know a lot of this stuff. I'm so glad I talked to you. Wish you all the best. We'll definitely be watching your progress, and it looks like nothing but, well, I'm sure there's going to be lots of bumps in the road along the way, but looks like a ton of potential. So wish you all the best with that. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, share down below. We've got awesome people like Christopher David on all the time. I think we are really changing the world and decentralizing the world, decentralizing all the things. And we're out here doing it. This is amazing. I'm actually kind of flustered right now at how this is all happening so fast now. It's really awesome to see. So that's it for Anarchast, your home for anarchy on the internet. Peace, love, and anarchy. Okay,
well, most of our history is based on the Western mindset, mainly Europeans writing the history not only of themselves, but of every culture they encountered. And in a lot of cases, they got it wrong. For example, with Egypt, we now know for sure that the dynastic Egyptian people moved into what is Egypt, the Nile area, around 5,000 years ago. But when they arrived, they found structures in place, such as the 3 big pyramids on the Giza Plateau.
You're in luck. Found exact change. Y'all can mail me the receipt too. Just mail me the receipt. You got my address. Peace out.
From Acapulco, Mexico, this is Anarchast.